everybody, it's Brian Asbury, and I just wanted to welcome you to today's episode. If you could, like today's episode, hit that subscribe button, and let's continue to grow the Developmentally Speaking brand.
Khris, welcome to the show. How's everything going in your world?
Getting better. Working on a laundry list of health issues that we need to get corrected and fixed, but we're heading in the right direction with that.
That's amazing to hear. So let me ask you this question. What made you want to get into professional wrestling?
Well, several years ago, back in the late 80s,
Mm-hmm.
because, I'm one of the old guys, I was watching Jake the Snake Roberts and listening to him cut his promos and do his thing. I fell in love with it right away. Like, I couldn't help it. I was glued to it, and I was like, I have to do this. This is what I have to do. It sounds cliche. Everybody says it, Well, people wanted to be a police officer. People wanted to be a firefighter. I always wanted to be a pro wrestler, but that was it. From the time I was 5 or 6 and seeing Jake Roberts do his thing, I was hooked. I had to be in it.
Now, I can see how Jake Roberts could pull you in. He's one of the best talkers in
Yep.
the business, so it's easy to fall in love with the sport, through Jake Roberts. I completely understand that.
Absolutely.
So growing up, when did you make the decision that this is something you were going to pursue?
Well, I had come across a flyer in Columbus, Indiana for a local independent show, and at that time I had no idea those existed. I was like, it was WWF at the time or WCW on TV. That was it. And I'd seen a guy that was a couple of years older than me, but he was going to Columbus North High School by the name of Charlie Sizemore, or in the wrestling world, Brad Lehman,
Mm-hmm.
was on the flyer. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, how did he get into this? And what is he doing? And that's kind of like how I was like, all right, I need to figure out a way in. I was, I believe, about 17 at that time when I went. So, I started being really annoying with him and trying to figure out where he got trained so that I could go get trained, and how he got in it so I could get in it. So he eventually sent me to Roger Blade in North Vernon, to get training. And, I trained with some pretty cool kids down there, at the same time. So
So was Roger a vampire at the time?
he was not. Roger was still old school at the time,
Mm-hmm.
because I do believe that Roger, when I met him, was still like 55 years old, but he stays 55 constantly, so he may very well be a vampire. But yeah, I had a great group of guys to train with. I had Charlie Garland down there. He, kind of fell off, but Jim Brown and Mike Fisher and then Jason Ayers, we all trained at the same time, did the same things. So it was a pretty cool little group of guys.
See, when I first started and I want to pursue this, I actually trained with Charlie for a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, that was in Holton. Now that was a hell of a drive from here to there.
Yep, I wrestled down there several times, and sadly enough, that gym doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So, little piece of wrestling history for around here is kind of gone.
So how was your training under Roger? Did you feel like you got what you needed out of it? How long did you train?
Oh, absolutely. I got what I needed out of it. Roger, like, people do pick on Roger a lot. Me and him don't see eye to eye on a lot of like personal beliefs and that sort of thing. But as far as training went, he gave us OVW training because he came from Danny Davis. He was from that whole deal. So he didn't hold back, and he had us training 6-8 months before we got to do anything. But he really put it to us, made sure the basics were hammered in. We knew what we were doing. We knew we were safe. And if you look at the group of guys that he put out, his reputation kind of speaks for itself as far as the trainer goes.
Mm-hmm. So after training, where'd you first make your mark?
My very first match was for Eric Draven's promotion, Supreme Championship Wrestling. I can't remember what it was called then, but it was back in 1999. They had a guy no show, and the old adage, always bring your gear.
Hmm.
So I had my gear with me. They stuck me in there. I had like a 3 minute squash match with a guy by the name of the Bouncer. I don't know if you ever seen him, but he was an older guy, and he kicked the crap out of me. So that's where I started down in Madison. Then I kind of just filtered out a little bit of
Hmm.
everywhere through Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. Pretty much.
Any notable feuds throughout Madison? And I know you spent a lot of time in Columbus
Yeah.
as well. So how was your overall your time with Draven? I know you still make the occasional appearance
I'm gonna
before
put you
you
out there.
stepped away.
Yeah, with Draven, he's kind of to believe in me.
Hmm.
Like throughout everything, like he had me as the guy down there. He was kind of grooming me to be his top guy.
Hmm.
I enjoyed my time down in Madison. There was a couple of people that obviously made it not so enjoyable.
Hmm.
Um, that's anywhere you go, but there's going to be those guys that even though they've been on the same level as you and never done anything more than you, think that they're grizzled veterans that can kind of tell you what to do and push you around, and they're very loud and very angry individuals. So that part of it, turned me off. The locker room drama politics side, I'm not a huge fan of it.
Hmm.
Never have been. But feuding with Draven, feuding with Billy Maverick down there, which is a name that a lot of people through Kentucky and Ohio and Indiana will know. Billy Maverick's a great guy. He's done a lot of things, but feuding with them, feuding with Ricky Ruckus down
Hmm.
there was great. Filtering up, and then I kind of traveled a little bit everywhere. I did a couple spot shows for OVW,
Hmm.
down in that area. It got to meet a lot of cool people that way. Meeting with Matt Capitelli and Lance Storm's first show with OVW as the head trainer I was at, and that was nerve wracking.
Oh
I
yeah.
actually wrestled Roger on that show. So the fun little story I always tell from that is I'm wrestling Roger, and I'm the heel in the match. Roger's the face, which was completely weird to me because Roger's always been the heel and I've always been the face. But we're doing our thing and put a rear chin lock on, and I roll Roger around to the hard cam side like you're supposed to, and I look up and I see Lance Storm's face in the curtain watching the match, and I was like, oh man, like I froze, I panicked, here I
Hmm.
am, like I don't know how many years I was still really young in the business when it happened, but yeah, I panicked immediately, and Roger had to talk me through the rest of the match to get me on pace, but I had a lot of fun. I do have to say my last 8 years in the business was probably my best, run with Emerge Wrestling up in
Hmm.
Columbus. They gave me a lot of opportunities to do a lot of really cool things with cool people. So
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw you was in Columbus, Indiana. I was very young, not to make you feel old. Grandmaster Sexy was on the show, so that was my first I believe
I remember that show
it
very
was
well.
behind a bowling alley, I do
Yep.
believe. Yep.
Yep.
So that was my first experience of you wrestling back in the day. I think that HPW was probably my first independent wrestling shows.
Jerry's show, and a lot of people not Jerry, and I won't get into him personally.
Hmm.
He wasn't the best promoter out there. He did kind of take advantage of people for the nice way to let me be politically correct on that one.
Hmm.
But he gave a lot of people a lot of opportunities too. I was a young kid, 17, 18 years old. He didn't have to use me on his shows and actually pay me to be on them.
Hmm.
A lot of guys refuse to pay people, at that age and that experience level. But he gave me a place to work every month for several years. We had a falling out. I went elsewhere. It is what it is. And, it worked out for everybody. But there's so many people that got a good start there.
Hmm.
You can't completely trash that history. There's some bad things about it, but it was a good opportunity for a lot of us.
Completely agree. So, how long were you a singles wrestler before you started your tag team? Because
Um,
I remember that tag team very well.
I think I got a good 9 years in before I started doing, tag stuff with good old Damian Devine,
Mm-hmm.
doing the Fallen deal. That run was a lot of fun doing the tag team stuff, running down in Louisville
Mm-hmm.
with Circle City Wrestling down there, and going against Jack and Vito of the Fat and the Furious. And I believe that's when I really learned how to transition from being a guy that can wrestle
Mm-hmm.
to a worker. Um, Jack and Vito, they had a huge pedigree coming from OVW. The guys that they worked with there, Brock and Shelton, and like all those guys, they knew how to be TV ready and how to put together, a match start to finish. And they took that knowledge and they gave it to me and Damien and taught us how to be ringleaders and ring generals to have a good match with anybody we went against. So, we were very, very blessed in that aspect.
Now, how long was the Fallen teaming for?
We were together for several years. We kind of fell off when things outside of wrestling took off for Damien.
Mm-hmm.
He started the whole barbecue
Mm-hmm.
competition thing, and then started owning restaurants and all of that, which I can't, fault him for running after that. He was making good money doing this thing. He's still making good money doing this thing. So, you know, if you want good barbecue in the Southern Indiana area, hit up Big JT's in Columbus. I
Mm-hmm.
will forever plug that guy. So, yeah, that was kind of the falling out, was he had the stuff take off outside of wrestling. So we had a good several year run together.
So after the Fallen, where did your career go that direction?
I kind of just floated around a little bit. Um, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I ended up taking a couple years off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Started a family at the time, um, and all of that, and then Emerge kicked up. You know, Donnie Idol and Dave Dynasty and Ricky Ruckus called me up. Hey, I know you've been out for a year or two, but we're starting up this company. Would you be interested in being one of our featured guys? I had been dealing with some nagging injuries. I had put on some weight. My confidence level wasn't very good. So I told him I'd come in and I'd put some people over, and then, I'd step away. I figured I'd be done. I had a good job,
Mm-hmm.
doing all that. And that turned into being there for the next, what, 6, 7 years, in really having probably the best run that I've had. So, it worked out well for everybody, I think.
I was gonna ask, what does Emerge Wrestling mean to you? Because I do feel like that is a very accurate statement. Like there was a new Chris Caliber when that started.
That changed everything for me. Like, Emerge is probably the most important piece of my wrestling career. Um, because when I came in, like, legit, the plan was we're doing the tournament at the first show. I would do something with Ricky there. Then the next couple shows, me and JD Mariani would do stuff with Donnie and Ricky, and then I'd be done, and I'd
Hmm.
step away and let them go. But then it just, like, wrestling got really fun again. Being in front of, they were drawing 500 people,
Hmm.
and they were packing these buildings that were standing room only, and like a lot of people say that, but if you go back and look at Emerge 1, 2, 3, and 4, like those videos, there were people packed up against the walls, watching it, and they were really hot into what we were doing.
I don't think
So
they didn't bring any like TV names in either, did
no,
they?
we
They
didn't
just
use a
packed.
name at Emerge until I think when Christopher Daniels came in was the first name that they
Hmm.
used. It was all
Hmm.
local guys, like, which made it even more impressive that they were packing these crowds in with local guys,
Hmm.
and everybody there stepped up and put on amazing shows. So it made wrestling fun again. And I kind of told the guys, hey, I'd like to stick around a little bit longer. And they put me together with Jeremy Hadley. And I don't know if you're familiar with his work,
Hmm.
but that man is probably one of the best heels in the Midwest, if not the country. I don't. He sells himself short
Hmm.
every chance he can get, but he truly could be somewhere under contract with his talent. And him and I instantly we clicked from the moment they put us together. Like our philosophy on things, how we want to do things. I think we did 2 or 3 matches in a row where we didn't call anything with each other. We didn't. We just knew what we were doing because it just felt right. So that gave me confidence back in myself. You know, the run with Jeremy Hadley for the Outbreak title and all that gave me a lot of confidence to do what I know I can do. And I have a bad habit of selling myself short on, you know, my wrestling career and what I can do and what I've done. Like
Hmm.
I'm very humble when it comes to what I can do. Um, these days, not so much. I'm pretty proud of what I accomplished in wrestling because,
Hmm.
I'm just a little kid from Columbus, Indiana that just loved wrestling and fell into it. And then I've got to wrestle pretty much all my heroes. The guys that
Hmm.
got me into wrestling, I got to wrestle all 3 of them. Um, but having the confidence in myself in that emerge run, they ended up moving from their original plan for their title
Hmm.
to put the title on me and give me the run against Congo Kong and Chris Silvio and bring Raven in and, bring Nova in and letting me work with these guys and, put on the show that I know I can put on.
Hmm. And I could see how Emerge would light that fire because it's very rare for a company to be able to just draw that many people with just all their local guys. So you knew that there was something special, and the crowd really resonated with all of you guys, and they were invested in you. So I could
Yeah.
see how that would relight everything.
Yeah. With Emerge, even in the locker room,
Hmm.
it, you would talk to each other. Okay, well, your opening match. Well, all right, since your opening match, you're going to try to put on the best match of the night. Okay, well, match two is going to top it.
Hmm.
And there was no, oh, their opening match, they should know their place, and that whole deal. It was okay, you're doing that. All right, well, since you're doing a bunch of high spots and you guys are high flyers, well, now I'm going to use psychology in match two, and I'm going to give them something completely different, but it's going to top what you just did in match one. And that's how the whole card went, top to bottom. Like
Hmm.
nobody was mad at each other for what they did. Nobody, was, oh well, match one they did 3 dives to the outside, and that's a terrible thing, and they shouldn't do it. And it's like, oh well, they did 3 dives in match one. We're going to do no dives in match two, and we're going to get just as over, if not more over,
Hmm.
than what match one did with all their dives. And then it was a friendly competition between everybody to step up our game to a whole new level.
Absolutely. So how would you rate your run as the Emerge champion? Were you very proud of everything you accomplished
I am
being that leader?
100% proud of that. Yeah. I think, and this isn't a slight to anybody else there, I
Hmm.
think my run as champion with Emerge is the best championship run that Emerge has had so far. I won't say ever
Hmm.
because, like Braden Lee's on a pretty impressive run right now, and Justin Kyle had a pretty good run. But as far as having the fans emotionally invested into what I was doing,
Hmm.
I think that separates me from them. The feud I had with Jordan Cage alone, where I was going through my divorce and my whole world was falling apart. And, I talked about this in an interview with Emerge, but at that time, there was a suicide attempt in there as well. Um, but I prompted Jordan Cage to use my world falling apart, my real life situation in the story. What kicked off our deal was I had gotten an award for Wrestler of the Year
Hmm.
at Emerge, and they give out pretty nice plaques for their awards too. They don't skimp on anything. But he came out and interrupted that, and he made the comment that after our match, that belt's going to be much like my ex-wife and going home with another man. So that set off that, and we ran with the emotional side of stuff on that, and I used the real life pain and the real life stuff I was going through
Hmm.
to connect with the fans and really suck them into everything I was doing.
That I always feel like that's the best performances when that emotion is high and the energy is there, and that's when because you're just living for the moment and you're just
Yep.
fighting.
And you can feel it
Hmm.
when you're in the middle of it. It's hard to describe, but people will tell you all the time, you feel it that you've got them. Like
Hmm.
you hooked them, they're there, and you can feel it. It's different than you going out. Oh, I had a really great match that was good. Da da da. But when you hook them, and you can take them on this ride and put them where you want them to be emotionally, there's nothing that compares to it in the world. It is what the addiction to wrestling really is, is
Hmm.
is that emotional connection.
I agree. So after your run as the emerged champion, tell us what happened next.
Um, I kind of went to management and
Hmm.
was like, hey, I'm winding down. At that point, I've hit 20 years in. You know, let me work with random people on a list that I had. Everybody did the list gimmick for a little
Hmm.
bit. It's like, let me knock off some of these matches that I personally want to have, and let me help elevate some of the younger talent. I kind of also moved into more of a loosely a producer role.
Hmm.
I would help others kind of structure their matches, and what can we do to make it better, and that sort of thing, and helping others with their promos. So I kind of went to the coaching side of things.
Hmm.
Um, I started helping coach at the New Era Wrestling Academy in Shelbyville a couple nights a week. Had a heavy hand in training Braden Lee and Jake Carter and those kids. So I kind of transitioned away from being the guy, and
Hmm.
okay, let me get the next generation ready, because my body was really breaking down. I could feel it. My neck and my back are completely shot. I've got surgeries lined up for both of those coming up very soon, and so I was like, I need to step away from being so aggressive in the ring, and really foster a new generation of talent to be better than what they are.
Hmm. So, is this what led to ultimately your retirement from professional wrestling?
What led to that was COVID shut everything down.
Hmm.
I was running with Donnie as a tag team, so I could take it easy as far as the physicality went.
Yeah.
And he's got injury issues too, so it kind of worked for us to be able to get in and out, and not be so damaging on ourselves. But then COVID hit, shut everything down, and I kind of stayed off for a little bit, didn't really do a whole lot. I wasn't feeling so great. So, I went to the doctor. All right, before I get back into wrestling, I'd sent Donnie a message. Hey, I got a 2-year run left. I got a list of guys I want to work with to just do one offs with them, just so I can have that match and, have those memories. And he's like, give me the list. We'll make it happen. Everything you've done for us, we're good. I went to the doctor for a physical just to make sure, I'm good to go. Found out I have 5 completely herniated discs in my lower back. I have bone spurs on all 7 vertebrae in my neck that are causing my arms to go numb completely. So my doctors advised me, hey, wrestling is probably not the best idea going forward.
Hmm.
And that's, what led me to have to step away. Like, and that's been very frustrating for me because I have to step away,
Hmm.
knowing what I had in front of me. But I sat and talked with Nova about it, because he was like, hey, you're retiring. How do you feel about it? And I told him I was angry about it.
Hmm.
Like, it was taken from me. I didn't get to step away, the way I wanted. And he was like, but look at what you did. He said, your goal getting into wrestling was to wrestle Jake the Snake Roberts, Raven, and Nova. He's like, you did all of that. He's like, you never had the goal of a major contract. You never had a goal of, all of that stuff. You just wanted to do what you love doing
Hmm.
and wrestle the people you loved growing up watching. I was like, yeah. And he's like, and also, your oldest son thinks you're a hero. You got to wrestle in front of him. He thinks you're the greatest thing that's ever happened in pro wrestling. He's like, you did well. He said, not everybody can play for the Yankees, but
Hmm.
people can have a darn good career. He's like, and I think you did just that. So that's kind of changed my perspective on things. It's made me accept being out. So
Hmm.
now the focus has shifted from wrestling was taken from me to what can I do now to make things better.
Hmm.
So I have a 5-year plan. Says how long it's going to take for me to get recovered from everything. And in 5 years, I'm going to open up a wrestling school here in Southern Indiana, because we don't really have one here.
Hmm.
Um, we got OVW down in Louisville, which is 2.5, 3 hours south of me. We got HWA over in Cincinnati, which is 2 hours away from me, and that's it. We don't really have anything, a good solid school here. So I'm going to take my connections and what I've learned and my knowledge, and I'm going to start teaching kids. And that's how I feel my legacy is going to live on.
That was going to be my next question. Uh, so once you get, everything lined up health wise, are you going to just go straight for the school, or are you going to try to slowly dip your feet back into it, do some coaching?
I think I'm just going to fall into it. I don't know any other way to do things than to just go
Hmm.
full on into it. So, as soon as I get the all clear from my doctors on things to where I can be physical again, like I'll never be able to do what I did
Hmm.
before. But if I am cleared to get into a ring and do, activities in it, I'm going full bore into the school. Let's get it going. Let's get kids learning and teach them the right way, and teach them. Again, people make fun of me, but teach him the Roger Blade way. That's he taught me so well. Like I can't knock his training.
Hmm.
So that is what I'm going to pass on, along with the knowledge that I got from Chris Silvio and from Nova and from Raven and from all these guys. The things
Hmm.
that they taught me that took my training from Roger and put me as a great wrestler in the area.
Hmm.
I'll give those to all of my kids.
Well, I respect that, and I feel like it truly needs that. There's not a lot of options around, and a lot of people will train you or just take your money. So
Yep.
I feel like it's a good thing. Your plan is a good thing on what you're trying to do.
I think it's the best thing we can do
Hmm.
because the mentality of just taking these kids' money and putting them through all these super hard drills to try to get them to quit
Hmm.
and everything else. It it's outdated.
Hmm.
The way that the business is now, from even when I got in back, 23 years ago, it's changed. It's different. You know, so instead of fighting the change, accept the change. Give these kids the best opportunity to thrive and make the business better than what it was. Um, I've helped in a few different areas, and I offered to use my contacts to bring in people to do seminars with these kids. Bringing in Raven or Nova and these guys to help these kids learn.
Hmm.
Well, they haven't earned it yet, is what I was told. I was like, they're learning. Why not give them the best education possible and let them thrive so that your school that you're running looks way better because of the quality of talent that you're putting out, versus the one guy that's come out of it that's really done anything, you know, um,
How dare you try to
versus
bring
the
someone in
mentality of,
better than me?
yeah, like I hate the mentality
Hmm.
of you have to earn the chance to get an education.
Yep.
Like these kids should have the best education possible, you
Hmm.
know, but that's my angry wrestling vet rant since that's been a popular topic these last few days.
So that was always the difference, my mindset versus Morty's is Morty was all old school, and I'm like, well, I was privileged to start where I started, like behind the scenes and stuff. So I was like, it's not like that anymore. You don't got to beat this shit out of this person and do this, and he's
Yeah,
like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, no, if you don't evolve, you will die.
exactly. I believe Mike Quackenbush said that something similar to that about how everything evolves.
Hmm.
And if everybody thought Pac-Man was good enough in the arcades, we wouldn't have the video games we have today,
Hmm.
and the art that is video games,
Hmm.
today. So it's the same thing with wrestling. If we stuck to the Hulk Hogan days and the Bruno Sammartino days and all that, would wrestling still be a thing? Absolutely. Would it be the absolute powerhouse that it is today? No. Like it's you just can't do it. And you look at even WWE, like a lot of people bag on them because they do it a certain way and they do this, they do that. But if you look at their results, they're
Hmm.
packing stadiums all over the place.
Yeah.
Their ratings are not as high as they used to be back in the Monday Night Wars days, but they're still making a lot of money off of that. They're
Hmm.
doing billion-dollar contracts with TV stations. Their formula works.
Yeah.
Like you can't knock the absolute best because they know what they're doing. And do they miss? Absolutely. Like they miss on good talent, they miss on characters, they miss on that's every business.
Hmm.
You're going to have flops no matter where you are, no matter what you do. Like say I open my school and I get 10 kids in there, in my first class. 8 of them may never go anywhere in wrestling.
Hmm.
You may have 5 of them quit, and then you may have another 3 of them that just kind of bounce around here or there, and then you have one kid take off and they're amazing, and then one kid kind of hit a middle of the road area. Like, does that mean my school's not successful because these kids didn't make it?
Hmm.
No, it means that, those 2 that really put in the effort and really worked hard, did what they had to do. But everybody hates on success for some odd reason, and it's like WWE's evolving and they are doing it right because they say they make movies weekly.
Hmm.
That's what they do, and they do it better than anybody else out there.
Yep. I agree. Well, let me ask you one final question here, since you're playing as a school. What advice would you give somebody that wanted to get into professional wrestling?
Don't wait. There'll never be a perfect time for you to start. I hesitated quite a bit when I first started. Like I was pushing at it. I'm like, Then I got scared shortly. I'm like, oh, I'm really gonna do this. Well, let me wait 6 more months so that I can make sure my money's right and all that. Don't wait. Find a good school. Look at the reputation of the people that are training. Look at the connections they have. Look at their pedigree and what they've done. Because in this day and age, everybody's on YouTube. You can
Hmm.
look up anybody. My stuff's on YouTube. You can look up my stuff, and if you don't like what I do, don't train with me.
Hmm.
It's as simple as that. But the adage of if you've never been to the show, you can't get people to the show. It,
It's
I
not true.
sabotaged my own wrestling career. Like
Hmm.
I could have blown up, but I was very, very happy being a big fish in a small pond in a lot of areas. Like I love, like my ego
Hmm.
is what stopped me from making it for a long time. And then when I put that aside, I had the best run of my career. So if I would have put my ego aside when I started and I was doing the OVW spot shows and I was doing a bunch of stuff like all over the Midwest, I could have branched out farther. I absolutely could have. Again, my humbleness has kind of went away since
Hmm.
I've retired. I had the talent to make it somewhere.
Hmm.
I've been told, like Nova straight up told me, I don't think you would ever be a main guy in a company, but you would kind of fill a Roddy Piper role. You would get the guys ready to wrestle the main guys
Hmm.
because that's how you work. And that's the best compliment I ever received. So take the notion of they've never been to the big time, so they can't get me ready to go to the big time
Hmm.
out of there. A perfect example of that is Danny Cage with the Monster Factory. He's very successful at getting kids ready, very successful at getting kids to that next level, and he never made it there himself. Injuries cut his stuff short. He had to get out of the in ring stuff, and then he focused on coaching kids. So, I'm kind of following his game plan, really,
Hmm.
all things considered. But find somebody that's going to be a good coach that isn't just going to be like, okay, give me your money every week. Here's how to do this. All right, go home.
Yep.
Because there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of stuff on the mental side of things in pro wrestling that a lot of people don't understand. That it takes a toll on you mentally. Being away, missing birthdays, missing family, just in general. I see kids traveling 5, 6, 7 days a week now. They're hustling. You got guys like Calvin Tankman and
Hmm.
Billy Starks and all that. Like she's running all over the world while in high school and maintaining straight A's in high school and all of that, plus a job on top of all of that.
Hmm.
Mentally that wears you out. Forget the physical side of things, but mentally that's where you have to be strong and you have to know when, okay, I got to scale back and I got to focus on getting my head right. We had planned to do this a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
And mentally I wasn't right, and I had to tell you, hey, I apologize for everything. Mentally, I'm not here. I have to step back.
Mhm.
I have to worry about myself because there's too many people that end up taking their lives over things that could have been prevented. Um, and I get in that space from time to time. So I've learned now to vocalize that and say, hey, I have to step away.
Mhm.
So I want to be able to do that with my kids in the training school. Hey, let's give them, people knock on people saying it, but give them a safe space to where they can come in and say, hey, my head's not good.
Mhm.
I need to take a break. This is what I need to do, and give that to them. So you got to find a coach, a school, anything that can give you all of those things. Anybody can learn how to do the wrestling moves.
Mhm.
It's been shown time and time again. You got guys like, and I'm not knocking their talents, but Bad Bunny coming in to WWE, Logan Paul, Pat McAfee, all these guys can learn the moves.
Mhm.
Anybody can, but learning everything else is what's going to get you there and what's going to make you a star.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Anybody that trains with you, it'll be what's best for them. I completely support you in this endeavor that you're going to do.
I appreciate that very much. It means a lot to have a lot of people around me supporting me.
Mhm.
Pretty much everybody I've worked with is like, hey, this is definitely what you need to do.
Mhm.
You need to teach people because that's what you're really good at. Like, you're good at teaching these kids and getting them to do it the right way without stepping on what they want to do too. Because just because, all right, for instance, Braden Lee, he's a good high flyer. He wanted to break away from his um, amateur wrestling role because that's kind of what he was put in. Because he's very successful at that in high school and in college. So when he came into wrestling, that was kind of what he was pushed into, but he wanted to break away a little bit.
Mhm.
And he fought and fought and fought against it. And I'm like, do both. You can be a mat based wrestler, but still throw in the high flying stuff and still make it exciting for you to do it. And so we had a lot of late night talks on the phone, 3 or 4 hour conversations about how can we package it together to be happy. And I think he's found a good groove with where he's at now, and he's really coming into who he needs to be. You know, um, and that's what you need to do. And having people support that and telling me, hey, you should be teaching, you should
Mhm.
be getting out there and doing like guest coaching spots places and helping because you have a lot of knowledge to give. That means the world to me. Like, people don't know how much that just like
Mhm.
makes my day to hear.
Well, I'm happy that things are going in the right direction for you. I look forward to seeing what's next for you. Is there anything else you'd like to plug before we go today?
I'm not really. I'm staying low key, being a dad at home,
Mhm.
taking care of my three crazy boys, and just enjoying life for the next 5 years as
Mhm.
much as I can. But once the school pops up, it'll be everywhere. I'm gonna plaster that thing.
Mhm.
People are gonna get tired of hearing about it, but it's happening.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on today. I'm glad that we got to sit down and talk. It was an absolute pleasure.
I appreciate you giving me the time to talk and talk about the things that I've got to do.
Anytime, reach out anytime and we'll set something up.
All right, man. Take care.
Thank you.